Greetings. In the last video I mentioned that I was getting ready to have cataract surgery. At this point, I've had the cataract surgery, and this is the first time ever, and this goes way back, first time ever that I'm doing a video without glasses, because the glasses aren't going to help. They're totally different. I will explain why as I move on. So I'm going to talk about the day of the surgery and then the day after the surgery. And I'm probably going to mention certain things that when I was researching, I saw online on Google that didn't happen that way. So let's get going. I had to be there by 8 o'clock. And my friend Kelvin picked me up, got me there right on time. I walk down. I give my information. I sit and wait for a nurse to come get me. The nurse comes and gets me, takes me into one of those cubicle rooms there with the curtains, and she starts talking. And I'm just listening. I'm chill. I am not worried about this at all. I was worried when I was getting ready to have shoulder surgery, but this time I wasn't worried at all. And I say that because there was one thing I was worried about, but I wanted to hear what she had to say. So she starts giving me the prep, talking about how things are going to go and how, the doctor has done thousands of these. And then she mentioned the other doctor, which I had no idea I was going to have two doctors. And then she mentioned that there's going to be an anesthesiologist there. And I said, wait, so I'm going to have anesthesia? She says, oh yeah, why wouldn't you have anesthesia? I said, because on Google, nobody was having anesthesia. She says, well, we're having anesthesia. I'm already cool now. Now I'm really cool because I wanted anesthesia. I didn't know how it was going to work. I didn't know if I was going to get a nerve block. I didn't know if they were going to put me to sleep. And it turns out that I didn't get a nerve block, thank goodness, because those can take a long time to recover from. I didn't go to sleep. Basically, they put me in a state where I wasn't worried about anything. I didn't really care. I could hear what the doctors were saying, but I couldn't focus on any of it. I saw this light that was going on there, but once again, I couldn't really focus on it, which is a good thing. So she goes through those motions. She has to get all this information from me. She has to keep doing these tests on me. I'm diabetic, so even though I had told her what my reading was, before I left home, she did it 3 more times. That's irksome because I get my sample from my hand. I've always done my hand, but everyone else does it from the finger, and it hurts. And they say, does that hurt? I think, are you diabetic? Why would you ask that question? Of course it hurts. That's why I use my hand. I had that. I had multiple eye drops put in my eye to numb it somehow. Don't ask me. It just numbed it a little bit. I had a full bed. I had to lay back, put my head in this, I don't know what you call it. But basically, she had to adjust it so my head was firm in this thing. And I was in a bed. So I wasn't sitting in an upright seat, which I saw on Google. So that wasn't the same kind of thing. And I had a doctor who came in, said I'm working with, the other doctor whose name right now I can't remember, but I'm sure it'll come to me at some point. So that's when I first found out I was having 2 doctors. And then the anesthesiologist came in, and he's also a doctor. So there's 3 doctors. And then this other nurse comes in. And I guess you always have a nurse around to do something. So anyhow, this thing basically, even though it took 45 minutes before I went in for the surgery, it didn't feel like 45 minutes at all. I had almost no time by myself. The only time I had by myself is when the nurse left so I could take my shirt off, take off my my hoodie because it was cold. It's cold outside, it's cold in there. Most surgery centers, when you go in, they're going to be cold. That's how they keep down infections and such. So it's not necessarily going to be warm. However, once I laid down, she put this warm heated blanket on me, and I said, oh my goodness. I need one of these at home, which I have electric blankets, but this was wonderful. And it was this calming, and I felt really good. And then after they do all this stuff, the thing that hurt the most was when she was trying to put the IV thing into my arm. That hurt. That's the only pain I had. And, well, okay, the finger stick hurt also. But, that's like maybe a few seconds. This took her maybe 25, 30 seconds to get it in. I've always had trouble when I've had to have blood drawn. So this wasn't blood being drawn. This is trying to get something into me that was going to stay. That hurt. But we got that set. So when it was time, someone else came and they started wheeling me. And I'm looking up and all you see is the ceiling. And that's kind of cool. But like I said, I was chill. And I go into this room and they've got the big lights above me. But I didn't notice whether it was really bright or not. That could have been because of what was put in my eye. By the way, this eye here was covered up. So they were, they knew what eye they were working at. And so I guess they just covered up the other eyes to make sure that they stayed on one eye. I found out later on that they had put this mark above my eye, the one that they were going to operate on, to make sure that was the one they were going to do. And they asked me that question multiple times. So why are you here? I'm here for cataract surgery. What eye? Right eye. I kind of like that. Make sure that there's not going to be any mistakes. I'm sure we've all heard about people who've gone in for surgery and had the wrong thing operated on. So there you go. In my case, if they had decided to do the left eye first, I don't know that I would have griped all that much. But since they said the right eye was the worst one, I'm glad they did that. So everything gets started. I know that I'm getting this anesthesia because I'm just really chill. Like I said, I could hear them talking, but I had no idea what anyone was saying. Supposedly, if I'd been asked a question, I would have been able to answer it, but I was never asked a question. And my eye was open the entire time, and I just swore I saw this little lighted square. That's the only thing I remember. They were doing their thing, which is they have to cut into the eye. It sounds really horrible. It sounds really scary, but you won't even notice it. But they cut into it to remove the lens that you were born with, and then they put in the artificial lens. And then I'm assuming, I don't know how they sew it up because I don't see any thread or anything. I don't know how that works. But I was in there about 30 minutes, which is what the first nurse had said. And then they take me back into the other room. And there is no process where you're sitting in there for hours getting, the anesthesia out of you. That's what happens if you're put to sleep. In this case, they did everything that was supposed to be done, took me back in the room, basically let me stay in there for about 5 minutes by myself. And like I said, I'm still chill. And then the nurse comes in and she starts asking some questions and she's telling me, how the doctor said the process went. And that they were waiting for the doctor to come in and talk to me briefly, and then I could get dressed. They would call my friend to come get me. So I actually ended up leaving about an hour ahead of what they had told me I was going to leave. I wasn't mad at that. So I had this thing that initially they called an eye shield, and then I had a nurse on the phone tell me it was an eye patch. And then at some point later on, I realized it was an eye shield because I had my glasses in my pocket thinking, okay, I'll just put the glasses on so I can see out of my left eye. I could not put my glasses on because the shield was just too big. That was going to be the theme of the day because we'll come back to that. Anyway, we get to this point. The doctor comes in, tells me everything went well. I should be fine. Tells me not to lift anything that's more than 10 pounds, not to bend over. In other words, you don't just bend all the way over. If you have to go down, try to squat to get it or try to find other ways to do something, but do not bend over as much as possible. I've had struggles with that. I'll come back to that. So then we have that done. The nurse goes to call my friend. I have to get, put my shirt back on. And I'd had my sneakers on the entire time, so I didn't have to worry about that. But I had to, get myself dressed, and then basically they put me in a wheelchair because they took me out in a wheelchair, which I guess made sense. And when I had shoulder surgery, I got taken out in a wheelchair. So I get taken out in a wheelchair. My friend is there, rolls me over there. I couldn't figure out how to get into his car at first. So maybe I was a little loopy. I don't know. But I got into his car, and then we start driving back to my house. And this was just weird because, like I said, I couldn't put my glasses on, so I couldn't see anything. And I'm thinking, is this the first time that I've ever been in a car riding with someone else and I didn't have my glasses on? Because I couldn't focus on anything. Everything was just dingy, and it was a gray day anyway. We'd had rain, or we were having rain. So he gets me home to my house, and then he decides he's going to walk in with me. Now, I wasn't going to have that initially. I'm thinking, okay, thank you. You brought me home. You can leave. I'll go on in. It turned out to be a good thing he did come in with me, because this eye is covered. This eye can't really see. So the first thing I did when I walked into the kitchen is walked into this table thing that I have in there. So I walked into it. That was going to be the theme of at least a lot of the day. Because even though the night before I practiced walking around with my eye closed, my right eye closed, and I'm walking around, that seemed pretty easy. I said, I'm going to have this. This is going to be good. Well, I walked into this table in the living room because the depth perception was off, and I almost tripped a couple of times. I could now see how come the doctor had said, I hope you have someone who can stay with you in the house, which I didn't. But I could see where that comes in. And this basically answers the question for anybody who is thinking about asking it, or if they've looked it up. You almost never have both eyes done on the same day, because then you can't see. You don't have any kind of eye to help you see anything. And even if you have someone there with you, what are you going to do? You can't watch TV. As it turned out, I couldn't see any TV. I could not see the computer. I couldn't read anything. I tried. But I was putting it as close as I could, but I had this eye shield here. And it turns out that without having both eyes open, trying to read with just the one eye was problematic. So that didn't work. I was able to fix myself something because you couldn't eat or drink before you go for the surgery. So I was able to figure out how to have a couple of English muffins. I was able to figure out that. Dinner turned out to be a couple of hot dogs because, once again, I can't be really fancy. I can't do a heck of a lot of stuff, but those little minor things helped. And I ate very little on that day because, it was just trouble. I couldn't even make my tea. I usually make tea early in the morning almost every single day. I couldn't do that, which would have seemed like an easy task, but it wasn't. It's just not as easy as you think it's going to be. So I ended up taking a nap at some point. This is early afternoon. I took a nap because I felt kind of exhausted, and I felt kind of like I was out of it a little bit. And it was a wonderful nap. I can't argue about that. But later on, I said to myself, okay, I've got to get my 5 miles in because I walk at least 5 miles every single day. I've done it since 2014. I wasn't going to miss my 5 miles. So I got in my 5 miles, walking back and forth through the living room, through the dining room, through the kitchen, and back. I did that. I decided to try to do one project, which turned out to be harder than I thought it was going to be because, once again, I couldn't see, but I got it done. So there was that. It was basically kind of a weird, quiet day. I went to bed early. Usually I go to bed between 11:30 and midnight. I went to bed at 10. I was prompt. I was ready to go to bed at 10. I had to be up at 6:30 anyway because I had the follow-up appointment. And I ended up sleeping 8 hours. I slept more than 8 hours, all all at one time. That is rare. I think I've done it once before in 2023. I've had 8-hour days where I've slept, but I've woken up, had trouble getting back to sleep, so it would be an hour, hour and a half, and then I would go back to sleep. And then Fitbit would record, the next time, and that's the only time I was able to hit 8 hours. But this time it was a straight 8 hours of sleep. I felt good when I woke up. I had the shield on, so I got lucky because I have a CPAP mask where it just wasn't going on my face. But I have a second mask, which is basically my original mask that doesn't cover up my eye. I had to make sure that it was firm and everything. And I was worried about leakage because the mask I usually use is a lot quieter. But this one here, I was able to, force stuff in there. I got it to a place where it was quiet enough. I was playing the music that I play that helps me sleep because I've had trouble with insomnia and tinnitus. I know it's supposed to be tinnitus, but I've been saying tinnitus my entire life, so I just go with that. And that's actually a lie. I've been saying tinnitus for at least 15 years. That's not my entire life. I'm older than that. So anyway, I get up the next morning. I can't go in the shower because I have to make sure I can't get this thing wet. And the shower water's going everywhere. So I had to do the full tub cleaning, only I wasn't in the tub because I don't have a tub in there anymore. So it's basically at the sink, wash everything down because, you're going to see a doctor. You want to smell good. So I get all that done. My friend shows up. He's taking me. And I'm looking around and I'm saying, wow. Because once again, it's hazy. It's raining a little bit. And all I can see are lights. I can see big buildings, but I couldn't define what anything was. And I'm telling him, I'm saying, wow, this is just so weird. How I can't tell how far behind you are in a car. I can't tell the color of the car. I can just see lights. I have no real idea what's going on here. This is just so weird. It was a different kind of weird than the day before. I think I still had a little bit of anesthesia in me, so I wasn't paying that kind of attention. But here we are this morning, and it was just weird. So we get there. Now he has to wait for me. It's not going to take long, but he waits for me. So I walk in, and I'm not in my house, but I'm still walking in. I'm having trouble seeing anything. I couldn't even see this big guy who was at the front desk for security. I couldn't see him. I knew he had to be there. And I couldn't see him until I was like right next. I said, dude, I can't even see you right now. This is so weird. He laughed. I bet he hears that from other people sometimes. So I knew where I was going to go. I was going to the actual doctor's office. So I get there and I sit down. And then 5 minutes later, I get called back into, one of the rooms with one of the nurses. And then she is the one who ends up taking the shield off. And at one point, she's doing her thing. And then she says, okay, I have to apologize for this. She rips it off. Why do people always want to rip tape off? I know they say, well, we get it done quicker, it won't hurt as much. Yes, it does. I've never ripped tape off of me. Of course, I didn't start growing hair until 5 years ago, so I definitely don't do it now. So she rips that off, and then she wants to do the eye test. So it's the first time that my eyes are actually open, because just before I went to bed, I started noticing that, wait, I think I'm seeing light through this. Is my eye open or closed? And so I start opening and closing the eye, and I noticed, okay, when the eye was open, that's when I was seeing a little bit of light. When it was closed, I wasn't seeing anything. So that was just unconscious when I was doing it there. But now I'm sitting there in the chair. She's ripped this thing off of my head. And then she, tells me to close the left eye. And then she puts this thing up on the screen, and I'm now supposed to tell her what the letters are. Well, I can easily tell the letters, but I couldn't do that when I had glasses. So she's got the big letters. I said, I told her what it was. Then she goes down, and I said, I can read that. Then she goes down. I can read all of those. Then she goes down to real tiny, and I start laughing and said, oh my goodness, I can't believe I can see all those letters. I can tell you what they are, and I tell her what they are, and she says, great, that's perfect. Then she hands me something, and I said, okay, I can't read this at all. She said, yep, you're going to need reading glasses. I said, that's a shame. So, I mean, that's one of those things where some people are going to need reading glasses, some aren't. And I've worn glasses since I was 8 years old, so maybe that's my thing. So, I can see. And I'm looking around, and everything looks so bright because I hadn't been able to see brightness. I had mentioned in the other video, I think, that I hadn't seen a blue sky in years. Well, I'm seeing all kind of colors, and everything was vibrant, and that was so cool. And then the doctor comes in, and he's only there like 2 or 3 minutes, and he asked me about it, and I said, this is just amazing right now. I said, what do I do for reading glasses? He says, well, you can go to the drugstore and get those. Some people will end up getting prescription reading glasses. I don't know what that's about. I'll probably research it at some point. But he said, you should be good. You're going to be coming back next week. I'm going to see how the eye, is progressing. And it wasn't until I got home later and I researched it where it said that it could take anywhere between 2 weeks and 6 weeks before you have the second eye done. I'm hoping for the 2 weeks, but, I can tell this is going to be a process. So he lets me go. I go outside. I can now see with this eye, but I can't remember what my friend's car looks like. I couldn't remember the color. So I'm kind of walking in the parking lot. And then he hits the horn, and then I realize he's there. So I get in, and I'm looking around, and I'm saying, oh my God, look I can see that building over there. I can see how clear that is. I can read that. I just kept being amazed at all the things I could see, all the things I could read, how bright it was, even though it was raining. And then I closed this eye, and I'm trying to look through this eye. I said, I can't see anything. And I still have glasses in my pocket, but it made no sense to put those on because I could basically only see out of this one eye, and that's the bad eye. And I was just amazed at how well I could see everything. I was reading signs that for years I had had trouble seeing. I could read road signs, street signs. I was able to read everything. I was able to read license plates. I was just stunned by it all. And he ends up thinking that he brings me home, and I come in the house, and I'm just stunned at what my kitchen looks like. I said, oh my God, look at this kitchen. Everything was just, it seemed like it was all brand new. And I loved it for a while because I sat down at my computer for the first time after I couldn't use it the day before. And it was really bright. And I remembered that over the course of the last few years, I've been making it brighter, saying, what's wrong with this screen? I bought this new monitor and everything just seems so dark. Well, now I have to figure out how to turn it down some because it's way too bright. But it was clear. I could read everything. And I said, this is just so cool. And everything was sharp and focused. And I just looked through different pages and, on the browser. And I said, this is just fabulous, except for the fact that it's way too bright. I will handle that. And then I decided, I got a TV in here. Let's put on YouTube. Let's see what happens. So I turned that on, and I could see it, and it was clear, and I could read everything. I said, wow, that's neat. And it's only a 32-inch screen, or 31, 32, I don't know what it is, that's here in my office. So then I go out to the living room, which has a 65-inch screen. And I hadn't been able to read any of those captions as to what the videos were for like a couple of years now. So I had to get up. Well, this time I turn it on and it brings up the videos, and I said, oh, wow, I can read everything and everything is focused. And that stunned me. And then I'm watching, I just put on just a video just to see what it looks like. It's crisp and clear, and bright enough, easy to see. And I said, I'm going to enjoy this. Then I decide to go into the bedroom. I have a 42-inch TV screen in there that I bought back in 2009. It still works great, but the thing is, I hadn't turned it on to watch in a long time because I couldn't see it from my bed. I could sit on the edge of the bed and possibly see certain things. Like, for instance, if I was watching a football game, then I could see that. But in general terms, I just stopped turning it on because I couldn't see it. So I turned that one on, and it was perfect vision. I sat way back in the bed just to see. It was perfect. Everything was wonderful. I said, this is so nice. And I'm looking around the room saying, yeah, this is what it looked like when I first moved into this house over 20 years ago. And I felt really good about that. So at a certain point, I said, I need to go get readers. This would be a nice test to see if I can drive right now, because I have one good eye, one bad eye, but I didn't have an eye patch to cover up the bad eye, and I wasn't sure that that was going to help with depth perception or not. So I go to the drugstore to buy a pair of readers. And that was okay. That actually wasn't all that bad. It was a little drizzly out, but it was a light gray, which was still brighter than anything I'd seen in the longest time. I go in there, I test these readers, and it was amazing. As soon as I put it on, everything could focus. I could see my phone, because that was one of the weird things, is that I couldn't read anything that was on my smartphone. But with the readers, I can. So I get that taken care of. I'm able to drive back home. It's really close. And I said, okay, this isn't going to be so bad. So like I said, for the rest of the day, the early part of the day anyway, I'm basically getting up, I'm walking around looking at things, opening cabinets so I can read stuff without having, anything fuzzy or having it look dark. Closing the good eye so I can see how things are bad, and then opening up the other eye. I say, man, this is going to be fantastic when I have both eyes done. And then it gets to about 6 or 6:30, and I've got this YouTube video on, and they're talking about Thanksgiving. And I said, you know what? Thanksgiving ain't Thanksgiving without a sweet potato pie. I'm going to go to Walmart, and I'm going to buy a Patti LaBelle sweet potato pie. So I hop in the car, and I start driving. This turned out not to be the best thing in the world. I didn't have an accident, but I was scared to drive. Because now it's nighttime, you don't have a bright sky, you do have the lights, but they're kind of reflecting off the road. And it's a 2-lane road, and I could see, the car lights, but because I had both eyes open, sometimes it was fuzzy, sometimes it was clear. I couldn't see like when you have 2 lanes and you have that little white stripe, going there. I couldn't see that all that well, mainly because of the rain, and probably because, like I said, I'm now looking through 2 different sets of eyes. And I get to Walmart. Luckily, I go right over and get my pie. I could easily see in Walmart, so I had no problem there. But then I was driving back home, and it was the same little fear. And I said, no, this isn't going to work well. I don't know if it's just today. I don't know if I'm going to have this problem over this week of driving. But definitely I knew I couldn't drive today. So I've been invited to my friend's house for Thanksgiving dinner. And he had offered to come drive me. I said, well, let me test to see how this works. So as soon as I got home, I texted him saying, okay, I'm not safe to drive. I could, drive if it was only in the afternoon, but if anything's going to happen toward the evening, I'm going to need someone else to drive. I don't think I'm safe on the road. So he's coming to get me. And, that's it. I did have some eye pain every once in a while. They did do surgery on it after all, so I guess that made sense. I felt a little bit of eye strain. I had times where I was reaching for glasses that I wasn't wearing because I was taking off glasses so I could, get close to the phone, because I've had to do that since forever. And I was doing that. And then a couple of times Like one time I was just laying in bed, just relaxing for a little bit. And then I got up and I put my glasses on, but they were the prescription glasses. I'm like, I can't see anything. So I had to take those glasses off because I had forgotten that. So those are just little minor things. But like I said, in general, I've had little pain. I love that I can see out of this eye now. I mean, I can see everything really clear in my office right now. I can read. I can read my calendar. I've had to get used to this big wall calendar. You know, I had to get really close to read it. I have this sheet next to me that I've had over here for about 10 years of my injection schedule because I'm diabetic. So, you know, I move things around. I've always had to get really close to it or get the flashlight and get close to it because I could never read it. I can read that perfectly. I can read what's on my external drive, my external hard drive over there. I can read where it tells me it's a Western Digital and the company that the drive is in, Insignia. I mean, this is wonderful. This is great. So when I see the doctor next week for, you know, to see if the eye is doing well, then I guess that's when we will discuss when I have the next one done. Truthfully, I hope it's within a week or two. I don't want to wait 6 weeks dealing with this. I got other things to do. But we'll find out. Anyway, that's it. Yeah, I know it's long, but, you know, jump around if you think about it. My name's Mitch Mitchell. There it is. I hope y'all have a wonderful day because I'm going to have a wonderful day. Happy Thanksgiving for those of y'all who are going to be with family, or if you're by yourself, happy Thanksgiving anyway. If you're in another country and you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, I hope y'all have a wonderful day. Take care.